Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Our session is the DOAJ and LPC community relationship, an update. My name is David Scherer. I'm from Carnegie Mellon University, and I'm joined by colleagues Emma Molls from the University of Minnesota and Judith Barnsby with the Directory of Open Access Journals, or DOAJ. We're going to begin by providing a summary of the DOAJ and LPC community relationship, which begins as far back as 2017 with the formation of the DOAJ LPC Task Force, which this task force was set with several objectives. This included conducting a survey of our members, their experiences applying to the DOAJ, and an analysis of all LPC member applications and accepted journals. The task force also developed a how-to guide that was specifically tailored to library publishers, and this guide was provided through the LPC website for members to review. These findings in the how-to guide were presented at the 2018 Library Publishing Forum in Minneapolis. Additionally, the task force used the forum as a way to expand the volunteer base within the DOAJ, with additional LPC members becoming associate editors. After the forum, several recommendations and actions were taken. This included continuing to monitor the LPC member applications, regular communication with the DOAJ between the LPC and the DOAJ representatives, an expansion of support for LPC members through the addition of 2 LPC member-based associate editors, and the creation of a new volunteer position known as the LPC Community Liaison. There are several key LPC community representatives that are a part of this relationship with the DOAJ, and we're going to introduce ourselves as well as introduce some of our fellow colleagues. As I mentioned, my name is David Scherer, and I serve as a DOAJ editor of one of the English review groups. I have a team of about 4 associate editors that review applications, including many of the applications from our LPC member institutions. And I also serve as the DOAJ LPC liaison. I'll now turn it over to Judith to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Judith Barnsby. I'm a senior managing editor in the editorial team at DOAJ. I work with 3 volunteer groups working mostly on English applications, which David is the editor of one. And I also manage the workflow in DOAJ, basically trying to make sure that applications are handled as quickly and as effectively as possible. So I'll just pass over to Emma.
Hi, thanks. My name is Emma Molls. I have a few different roles within the community. I serve as a DOAJ associate editor, so I work in a group with Dave and have applications assigned to me for review. I also am an LPC board member, which of course is a more large-scale overview and direction of LPC. And then similarly, I am a member of the DOAJ advisory board, and this also is a little bit more of a large-scale conversation that is typically had about direction of DOAJ and less focused on the applications themselves. And as Dave mentioned, I will now take a moment to introduce the other representatives that are from LPC that are in DOAJ. So we have 3 LPC members who are associate editors along with myself. And they include Catherine Dunn from MIT, Rhonda Marker from Rutgers, and Richard James from University of Pennsylvania. So these are 3 of our LPC colleagues who are reviewing applications. They're also great sources of contact if you have any questions and you happen to be in a meeting with them along the way. And I will turn it back over to Judith.
Thanks, Emma. So I'm just going to talk about the representation of LPC member journals in the DOAJ and how that compares with the situation before the task force was convened. So I've done a nice little graphic here so you can see the growth. And one of the great things that has come out of our collaboration since 2017 is that we now have more than double the number of LPC member journals in DOAJ than we had before. So I'll just look into the numbers in a little bit more detail. So we actually had 90 member journals in 2017, which was part of the analysis we did at the beginning of the task force. And there'd actually been 50 journals that were rejected before that date that didn't meet the criteria for inclusion. At the end of the task force in 2017, when I did a presentation at the forum, we'd gone up to 138 member journals listed. And today we now have more than 200. So it's really pleasing, the growth that we've seen, and I hope that we can continue that in the future. And we have nearly 50 members of the LPC who've got at least one journal included in DOAJ, which is much more than half the members of the community.
Great. So we're going to talk a little bit about what the updates that came out right before the new year, at the end of November in 2020, the new updates to the DOAJ application. So a few things have changed, and if you have recently been on DOAJ's website, you have noticed this. So first of all, the entire DOAJ website has been updated, which of course includes the application form itself. The update has now provided a cleaner, updated interface. So if you were somebody who had submitted applications in the past, things do look different if you haven't been there yet. For the application itself, things are a bit different. Now the application is split into 6 sections, and those sections I have in a screenshot of the application itself here on the right. So they ask about open access compliance, about the journal, copyright and licensing, editorial, business model, best practices, and then finally a 7th section to review your answers. This is a lot different than the prior iteration of the application, which did not have these sort of thematic splits. Judith will cover this in a moment, but it does make the application a bit faster to fill out. And for those of you who have editors who fill out the application themselves rather than you as publisher, I think this will make for a much easier time for those who fill out the application. The questions themselves have also been updated. So if you filled out a lot of applications before, you will notice that there are some questions that are no longer asked, and there are other questions that may be split into different sections or asked in different ways. I think the biggest tip that I can give as somebody who recently filled out an application in the new form is that the help text is incredibly useful. So the new help text, which is next to the individual questions themselves, if you click on the question mark, really will guide the applicant through any questions that they have about the specific thing they're answering. So please use those. They've been updated to incorporate questions that we had in the past that a lot of applicants maybe stumbled over. So take a look at that. But the application progress is measured by these different sections now. They're no longer sort of this long list of numbered questions. What this means for you is going to be covered right now by Judith.
Thanks, Emma. Yeah, so as Emma said, filling in an application form should take you now less time and effort. There are fewer questions to answer, they're better organized, and you can now save a draft application and return to it before you submit it, which was a big problem in the past. So if you needed to go off and ask a journal editor a question, you couldn't save the application in the past, and now you can. There are a couple of changes that I think it's useful to note. We now have some guidelines for new journals, which mean that you should either have published 10 research articles or to have been publishing for more than a year before applying for a brand new journal. And in the past, if a journal accepted different licenses, then DOAJ was only able to accept in the for one license, and now if you're able to publish an article under one Creative Commons license or another, you can now include all options that are allowed by the journal in the application form. So it is a much better reflection of the licensing that's used by that journal. And one thing that hasn't changed, but is useful, I think, to remember, is that if you're publishing student journals, DOAJ does accept student journals, but we require that they have some kind of faculty oversight. So just make sure that in your editorial board listing, there's at least a couple of faculty, and it's clear that they are faculty members with their qualifications. And that's what we'll be looking for when we are reviewing student journals.
Okay, so now we'll leave you with some final thoughts and comments. So first, we want to make sure that you're aware that there are a lot of LPC member volunteers. You have myself and Emma and our other associate volunteers. So if you have questions or you are unsure about the application process, please feel free to reach out to us. We also have Judith as one of our DOAJ representatives as well that we have to our disposal, and has been very helpful with answering our questions for our community members. Likewise, we are also looking for additional volunteers. So if you are interested in volunteering and becoming an associate editor, we'd love to have you join. Please contact me directly if you'd like to find out more information about becoming an associate editor, and then we can proceed with that. Lastly, as Emma mentioned, there is an updated DOAJ LPC how-to guide, which will be forthcoming on the library publishing community website in our resources section. We will share more information about that guide through the LPC communication channels once it's available. With that, we want to make sure you have our contact information, which you can find here on the slide. And we thank you for joining us today. We'll now stop this recording and we'll take your questions during the appropriate questions and comments time for our session. Thank you all very much for joining us today. And we will talk to you all very soon.